Welcome again to Being Thinking. In this episode, what I want to do is I just want to continue walking through the diagnosis process, and I want to take up again on taking ownership, and I also want to talk about framing things in your mind so that you don't fall headlong into depression. What I've done is I'm just going to kind of breeze through really the diagnosis phase of my journey again, so that we can really start focusing now more on I guess the mental skills that you're going to need to develop to survive cancer, or in fact any life impact moment. And I certainly have had enough of those in my life to have some experience with dealing with shit, and that's how I view cancer as well. I'm just dealing with some shit, just another chapter in my life. So really, we had my GP tell me that my diagnosis wasn't going to be good. He arranged for an endoscope to be done, and Denise and I went off, and we had that procedure performed, and that was a fairly comical start to my journey with the hospitals. And what I've done is I've actually told that story about the scope on a separate video, so if you want to go and have a look at that and have a laugh at my expense, by all means do that. And but essentially what happened is, straight after that procedure, Dr. Raj asked us to wait afterwards, and as the nurse was leading me through to the waiting room where Denise was, she said that was a little bit unusual. And after a while, Dr. Raj came in, and he basically said that based on his years of experience, that it was most certainly cancer, and he also claimed that he almost was unable to get the endoscope past the tumour and into my stomach. It was a very, 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 very tight fit, and so that in many respects was quite stinging to hear him say that. And I remember that journey home again was a fairly quiet one. I know that Denise and I just held hands, but I was beginning to think around, when should I tell my children, when should I tell my family. I still didn't have enough information to really frame all this correctly. I wasn't sure exactly what the end game was. He said it looked bad, but how bad? Was this going to kill me? Was it not? These were things that were going through my head, but I still didn't have the answer to any of those questions. And Dr. Raj also said that he would make arrangements for seeing both the surgeon and also seeing oncology. With the hospital system the way it is, it's going to take at least a couple of weeks for us to get to see the surgeon, and in between that time we'd also need to get a CT scan done, a whole lot of blood tests and what have you. And as we began to go through this process, I was just still very diligent about not going and running ahead, not researching this at that point. And so we had the CT scan done, but after I think about 2 weeks, I reached a point where I really wanted to know what that biopsy came back as, and so I went to my GP, and he told me yes, it's cancer, but he really couldn't tell me much beyond that. He was able to show me the doctor's letter from the endoscope, and I came home and I actually had a copy of that, and I came home and I did the best that I could to actually understand what all those big words meant. But it also had pictures that they had taken inside of my esophagus and stomach, and that just didn't look very happy at all. At that point, I then decided that, well, I really just need to tell my children. I at least need to do that. We already had the surgeon lined up for the next week, and so I went and basically told my children that, look, I've got cancer. I don't know to what extent yet, and that was that was a big shock to them, obviously. And I remember my daughter, broke down and cried, and asked if I was going to die, and I didn't have the answer to that question. And but basically, I simply told them that I'd obviously keep them informed what was going to happen next, with seeing the surgeon and then the oncology, and I'd have all the answers after that. My meeting with Dr. Rogers, who was the surgeon, and Dr. Rogers is an incredibly talented surgeon. He's very, very good. And the only question I really had for him was just what level of fucked am I? And it was wasn't his words, but my interpretation of that meeting was that I'm fairly fucked, but not totally fucked. Which is, I'll take fairly fucked over totally fucked any day of the week. I can tell you that. But he would leave staging and that sort of thing to the oncology department. All that he basically told me was that surgery would definitely be part of this regime, and that they would probably take around about 10 centimetres of my esophagus and the top part of my stomach, and then what they would do is they would then hook the two ends back together using what they call an Ivor-Lewis procedure. Which is an esophageal gastrosectomy resection. It's a big technical word for it. And so that was fine. I now knew that was going to be a part of this equation, and also that chemotherapy was going to be part of the equation, and that would be my next stop, would be to meet Dr. Finlay. And I've been so fortunate in the fact that I met for the first time a GP that I just clicked with and really like. I actually like going to his office, even if it's just to pick up some Losec. I had a great surgeon in Dr. Rogers, and an awesome oncologist in Dr. Finlay, and these are all guys at the very top of their game. And I was so fortunate, especially in a public health system. And it was at that appointment that Dr. Finlay talked about staging and explained what that was to me. Basically saying that stage 1 is very, very good chance of surviving. It's a very small mortality rate in stage 1. Stage 2, also the odds are they're not as good, but they're still in your favour. Stage 3, things are starting to look pretty bad, and stage 4, in stage 4 you have somewhere around about 11% chance of surviving that, and I was staged at stage 3, stage 4, just right on the border. And so that's when things really started to hit home for me. He also then just explained to me that what the whole regime was going to be. That I would have chemo, then surgery, then chemo again. And the way that this was going to work was that I would have what we call 3 rounds of chemo, and each round is made up of a cycle, and every cycle would last a month. And for me, what would happen is that I would go from one cycle to the next cycle to the final cycle back to back. And normally what would happen is that you would actually have a rest between each cycle, so that your body actually has the opportunity to regroup. because chemo really kicks the shit out of you, okay, at the best of times. And it kills everything. It kills the immune system, it kills off the cancer, obviously, but it does just a crap load of damage. And in the process, and they'd normally give you a rest period in between each one of those cycles, just so that you could recoup your strength. But I guess at that point, there was still enough beef on my body, and I guess young enough and probably fit enough to be able to handle such an extreme regime. And so that's kind of where we're at. And I remember, coming home after that appointment, and mentally it was a grind. I remember that for the first time I thought about dying and what that would mean. I had already accepted ownership of this, but now I was able to go through the process of actually framing it. And by framing it, I mean putting it into a perspective that I could understand, using my kind of language, and looking at how I could compose this. If you think about a photograph, how I could compose this as the best possible picture inside of a dark place. And for me, that was basically a case of just coming to the point of thinking that, this is just another chapter in my life. I've gone through a whole lot of shitty things in my life, and through the process of these videos, I will possibly share some of those experiences with you. I've had failure. I've raised a child with genetic illness. I've had other things happen to me during my childhood, which are not pretty things, and so I've had the opportunity in life to be able to look at situations and gain a different perspective of them. So one of the things that I don't do in trying to frame a situation is I do not ask, especially a life impact situation, is I do not ask the why me question. If you ask the why me question, what you're going to do is you are immediately going to place yourself on the back foot, and you are immediately going to paint the frame black, because you're going to be trying to answer a question to which there is very possibly no answer whatsoever. I've got cancer. Why me? Why not? I had a crime committed against me. Why me? Why not? You're never ever going to find the answer, because the answer doesn't exist 99 times out of 100. So drop that question, okay? That question will actually nosedive you into depression faster than any other question on the face of the planet while you're going through a life impact moment. Get rid of that question. What I did do was I began to go, okay, so the situation is I have cancer, it's at the upper end of staging, the outcome is possibly not going to be positive, but there is an 11% chance that I will survive this. That is a chance. And so I took hold of that. That became part of the picture. The next part of the picture was, okay, in my lifetime, what have I been through that is similar? Well, I've raised a child with cystic fibrosis, so there's lessons that I can learn from there. And I added those to my picture. I've had failures before, so I can learn from those experiences and add those to my picture. And and putting the pieces of the puzzle together till I finally came up with the, okay, I'm really going to win this, and then I then simply allowed my mind to wander, and what that did was that allowed the emotion to start flowing. Because one of the things that every man especially needs to do in a life impact situation is they need to release their emotions. Now, one of the things that men will often do is create a negative emotional release environment, and that's where I fucking blame someone. Now that's not ownership. Okay, if you start blaming other people for the shit you're in or the shit you're going through, you don't own it yet. That's plain and simple. Okay? What you do, and I know that we all need to rant, is you sit down with the people around you and you just say, I need to get this off my chest if you need to, and be very careful about your speak, because you can very quickly turn your speak from being generic to focusing it in on the people around you and the people that you love. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you have someone in your life who's going through a life impact, you also need to understand that if their language becomes personal, it's actually really not. Okay, they're just trying to deal with shit. But for me, I really just kind of did this in private. I remember taking time off work, and I came home, I sat down, and I just fucking burst into tears. All right? Yes, I cried. I cried like a baby. And I mean, I was sobbing. And I knew that I needed to do that. I needed to have that emotional release, because it was coming out of a really angry place, and that anger was really deep down inside my belly. And if you've got anger that far down, it needs to come out. And it's a whole cleansing process. And what that does is it cleanses your body, it cleanses your mind, cleanses your spirit and your soul of all the shit that is accumulated as you begin to step into the situation, and even stuff you've kept from other situations as well. And my life has been really stressful, so there was a lot of shit that needed to come out. And so I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, and that turned into a real, I guess I'd call it a righteous anger. And then I remember I just started swearing. And if you are sensitive to expletives, I would either turn the volume down now or block your ears, because this is what happened. I just got angry at cancer. And I just said, you motherfucker, how dare you invade my body? How fucking dare you rob me of my life and my life force? You know, you have no fucking right to be here. You know, now I don't know who the fuck you are or what you want, but I can tell you this: you got a fucking fight on your hands when it comes to me. Okay, I ain't never rolled over yet, never going to do it for the rest of my life. So, fucking dukes up, fella, we're going to battle. All right, and now I'm going to start looking at ways that I can kick your fucking ass. And that, in a nutshell, was my frame. I was going to win. And from that moment on, there was no question. And I guess if you now look at my journey, even to today, where I'm stage 4, there is some amazing shit that's been happening inside of my body that has been helping to keep this cancer at bay, and also giving the doctors a mental mind job, because it's not behaving the way that they would expect the cancer to behave. Now I know that there's a whole lot of prayer that people have poured my way, and I'm appreciative of that. And if you're an atheist, get over it, okay? If someone's going to pray for you, just let it be. All right? So there's a whole lot of stuff happening. But now I have my frame. And that frame has not changed from that time to this. I'm still in the winning game, and now my mindset is not only am I going to win, I'm going to make this fucking thing pay for itself. Okay, you fucked me up, you fuck up my life for 4 years, you're now going to pay. So there's a new aspect to my journey, and you need to have that, right? But I tell you what, one thing that I have not done at any stage, at any point through this, is I have not gone woe is me, and I have not asked the why me question. And I'm going to be honest with you, completely honest. I have cried 4 times through this entire journey, when it just got a little bit too much, and there are certain things, and I'll talk to you about the biggest mind fuck moment that you will ever have when you are facing something like cancer. And I'll tell you that in the very next video. But thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And remember, take ownership, frame things in your mind, and make every single minute count.